Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I am the Jedi known as Ethan, joined by my Padawan, or is it my master? Pete.
I'll be happy to be your Padawan.
Pete, my Padawan. We are, based on those introductions, you can tell that today we are talking about Ahsoka, a Star Wars story.
That's right.
So, what do we think of this? Like, we're a few episodes in.
We're halfway through the series, right? Four
Halfway
episodes
through.
in. I gotta say, I'm still on the fence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am enjoying that. It feels like a very Star Wars show.
Yes.
Yeah, great effects, lots of, flying around in spaceships, lots of lightsaber battles, lots of force. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I really must say I am a huge fan so far of Ray Stevenson.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, yes, Baylan, right?
Yeah.
Skull.
I am a real fan of a fallen Jedi.
Yeah.
He hasn't explicitly gone to the dark side, but at the same time, he's definitely not a good guy. I'm really liking that because you can tell that he's doing the things that he's doing because he thinks he needs to do them for the greater good, not because he's a generic bad guy. So like when he sends out that team to Ahsoka Tano,
Yeah.
he does that with a pang of regret, right? He even goes so far as to say there are so few of us.
Yeah.
Which implied he means there are so few Force users.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I'm not 100% on board with his Padawan yet.
Shin.
I don't know anything about her. She seems like a generic muhaha mustache twirling bad guy so far.
I mean, I like her evil streak, I have to say. Baylan, the all dark cloak, like it kind of says something, like he's on the dark side. He's even got the red lightsaber, but he's clearly trying to do something good, right? He's not in this just for power. He's not in this just for money. Somehow he thinks that he's doing something good.
Yeah, and you can tell he's working with the Night Sister, Morgan, not because he wants to, but because, again, he feels like he has to. Like he takes no joy or pleasure in it.
I don't really understand her deal. What is Morgan's, what is the Night Sister and what is she trying to achieve? They're trying to find Thrawn, right?
Yeah, so they're all trying to find Thrawn. The ultimate goal is to bring Thrawn back because, and I don't know the lore out of Star Wars canon, but my feeling is that they want to bring Thrawn back because he's the only one who's going to be capable of rallying the remaining resources that the Empire had to create the new First Order that we see in episode 789.
Okay, so this is taking place before 789, right?
Yeah, this is in between 7 and 6.
Because they mentioned Anakin.
Yeah. In fact,
okay. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
We see Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of episode 4.
Weird, huh? So Ahsoka was previously the Padawan of Anakin.
Yeah.
And she left. So she's considered a Jedi. She's considered to have Force abilities, right?
Yes. So I don't know if this is canon or not, but and I'm sure there's great debate amongst Star Wars fans, as there always is, about something. Yeah. But I consider her to be a gray Jedi. Okay. So neither aligned with the light side nor with the dark side. Okay. She walks the fine line in between.
So is she like an independent contractor? Because she's friends with Hera, which kind of means that she's supporting the Republic, right?
She supported the rebellion.
Yeah.
Which Hera was a part of.
Right.
And now she's, I guess, doing the same thing, but again, as like a freelancer.
And Sabine used to be her
Yeah, this I'm not a fan of. So I'm glad you brought it up.
This is a weak part of the story, I think, for a
This
lot of
for me is
reasons.
definitely the weak part of the story. So the implication is, and again, maybe I missed it in the animated shows, but the implication is that at some point Sabine was Ahsoka's Padawan.
But Sabine is, I guess, by birth a Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, which is fine because
Yeah.
there has been one Mandalorian Jedi before, or at least Force user. The problem is, in no previous installments did Sabine have Force powers. So I don't understand how she became a Padawan.
Can Ahsoka take a Padawan even though she's not a Jedi?
So technically speaking, you only take a Padawan if you're a Jedi, because that every
Right.
Jedi master has a Padawan who they train to
Right.
become a master, and so forth.
Yeah.
Again, big question mark.
I mean, I feel like they're making this question mark like we're supposed to be at the edge of our seats, like trying to figure out what their past relationship was. Honestly, it seems more like a romance. You and I just got done talking about Lioness, where we talked about the relationship between Cruz and Aaliyah. I have to say, Ahsoka and Sabine seem to be way more girlfriend than they do Jedi Padawan. There seems to be some type of weird issue between them. And then I have this problem with Sabine. At the very beginning, we don't know who Sabine is. We kind of feel like she's someone's reckless daughter, but we see like how aggressive she is and how she's riding the hover bike and how she's right. We see like she's very, very aggressive and apparently very skilled, right?
Yeah.
And then Shin and her robots come to attack Sabine, and Sabine fights off the robots and has a pretty good battle with Shin as well, right?
Yeah.
Then we see Sabine get onto Ahsoka's ship, and Hu Yang, right, her robot, is like, you're the worst fighter ever. You have the worst Jedi skills ever. You'll never make it. How did she possibly fight Jin to kind of like a draw then? And then we see a second fight with Shin, and she then kind of reverts to being a Mandalorian, shooting her gun, and then takes the lightsaber, and again, kind of fights to a draw. Like, is she talented or not talented? I'm hearing two different messages here.
I don't know, and I don't like any of the messages, to be honest. I loved Sabine in Rebels. I can't stand her in this live action thing. One, I think I have an inherent dislike for the fact that she's being referred to as a Padawan, even though she's not a Force user or was never implied to be a Force user. Two, the relationship that you see between the two of them as being potentially romantic, I don't. I see it more like mother-daughter.
Okay.
And she's coming off as that bratty, insolent, petulant pain in the ass. That trope that I hate.
She never listens.
Never listens. Like, she just comes off as such a pain in the ass. And like this last episode, the same thing. No matter what, will you do your job? Yes.
You can count on me. She says, you can count on me.
And then what does she do? She gives up the map willingly when she had the opportunity to destroy it. But no, it's such a terrible, terrible, terrible trope. I can't get over it. It's so annoying. So things like that pull me away from wanting to like Sabine. Even though in the animated show, she was fabulous. I thought she was great.
Yeah. It's hard to like Sabine, especially we see her in the beginning. She's so reckless. We hear that she's really bad fighter, but yet everything with Shin, who seems to be a very, very accomplished Padawan, she seems to be more than holding her own. And again, she's never listening to Ahsoka. There is this weird thing between Ahsoka and Sabine that reminds me a lot of Obi-Wan and Anakin in like episodes 2 and 3, right?
Yeah.
I always felt like this was George Lucas, right? But I felt like they always pounded it in. It was always Obi-Wan saying, Anakin, do this, or Anakin, don't do that, or Anakin, do this, right? And we see that's a little bit why Anakin, was so susceptible to, being corrupted. But here, I don't think Ahsoka is so terrible towards Sabine. I think really she's actually quite decent to her, is encouraging to her. I don't know what their problem was historically, but it seems that Sabine kind of left. It didn't seem that Ahsoka kicked her out.
We'll see how things go in the next couple episodes. I think the next episode is probably where we meet Thrawn and Ezra. I get the feeling the way they've set it up, we'll see Thrawn first. He's going to be this badass. He's going to kick some ass. And then at the very end of the episode, Ezra's going to come in and save the day.
Before I get to Ezra, I read something really interesting and I want your take on it. I read that one of the ideas of why Ahsoka and Sabine split was that Sabine, who was a Mandalorian, wanted to go back and help Mandalore or be involved in the Battle of Mandalore, and Ahsoka maybe prevented her from doing that. Sabine, losing everyone then, of course, had like a little bit of a grudge against Ahsoka for not letting her either go back or not going back with her and participating and trying to help the Mandalorians a little bit more. Does that timeline match up?
That could be the case. I don't know. I know that the illusion was made that Sabine is pissed off at Ahsoka because Ahsoka was the one who left. I guess mid-training or whatever it was, and kind of abandoned her. And that's why she's got a chip on her shoulder. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Honestly, I don't know that very well. It always felt weird to me that we didn't see Sabine in the second season of The Mandalorian. I was really hoping we would have seen Sabine sparring or arguing with Katie Sackhoff, especially with the Darksaber, but we didn't. It was a bit annoying, but that's fine. I mean, I'm glad to see her at all, but at the same time, I'm not loving her attitude. I'm not loving her shtick at the moment.
I thought that was a real critical moment where she handed the map to Baylan. I was kind of thinking that instead, the best case would be she kind of realized like she's outmatched and she's like, okay, well, better to join them and try to get some intelligence and I'll lead Ahsoka to us and, you know, because the map will be destroyed, but at least I can pretend that I'm on their team and I can destroy them from inside. But that didn't seem to be even remotely her strategy. She doesn't seem to be pretending at all. She seems to be saying, oh, I've got to find Ezra, which gets me to my biggest question. Who is Ezra?
So Ezra was the main protagonist of the Rebels TV show. Potential love interest.
Okay, and who is he?
So you remember that base that she was living in the first episode? That was Ezra's home. He was an orphan from that planet, Lothal.
Okay.
We find out that he's got force powers in Rebels. And he becomes Kanan's Padawan. Kanan is Hera's husband. And I guess Sabine and Ezra must be in a relationship, or there was some inklings of a relationship in there.
Okay.
I don't know. Again, it's been so long, I don't recall exactly what that relationship was.
Is he a good guy or a bad guy?
Oh, very much a good guy. He actually was the one who helped get rid of Thrawn from where they are now.
So why is Baylan promising Sabine that the only way she will see Ezra is if she comes with him?
Because in banishing Thrawn, he got banished with him.
Banished like?
To another galaxy somewhere else, or to some other dimension or whatever it was. To places where these guys couldn't reach them. And that's why they're building that massive hyper portal jump ship thing, is so that they can jump to where Thrawn is, bring him back.
So who banished Thrawn?
So in the last season of Rebels, Thrawn was basically making a play that would have basically destroyed the Rebels. Again, forgive me, fans, if I'm wrong. Leave a comment, fill me in. I haven't watched this in forever. The idea was that Thrawn had to be stopped, otherwise the rebellion was going to lose.
Okay.
And so Ezra sacrificed himself by teleporting them, or, hyper jumping themselves away.
Okay. So they're stuck on the same ship together?
Or in the same galaxy or whatever it is together.
Okay. So they created this ring, which is pretty cool. Have you seen this before? Is this part of lore or this is new?
This is all new for me.
It's got the engines that we saw were being smuggled out. And these are like massive hyperdrive engines. They use the map to find the coordinates of where he is. They destroy the map, and now they're going to get Thrawn. And apparently they will know how to get back to this galaxy try to install Thrawn in power, right?
Yeah.
And then what's Morgan's role in all of this? Like, what does she get when Thrawn is in power? She's going to be like the number 2?
I guess that's unclear to me. She's a Night Sister. So there's a planet called Dathomir. So Darth Maul was also from Dathomir. And the females in Dathomir, some of them are Force sensitive.
Okay.
And they're witches. They're called the Witches, and they're the Night Sisters of Dathomir. So it looks like she's one of them.
Okay. So she's really supportive of Thrawn. Do you remember in Rian Johnson's episode
8,
the Holdo maneuver? I thought that was going to happen here. I thought it was going to go into hyperspace.
Oh, yeah.
But it didn't seem to do that, right?
No.
It like knocked 2 of the X-Wings out, but then everyone else kind of survived. But I was like, oh, I want to watch that again. I think that was one of the better Star Wars moments, despite the fact that it turned everything on its head.
Yeah, and the movie itself visually, question marks.
The movie itself was not strong, but that Holdo maneuver, I thought the sound and the visuals was pretty wow.
After Ahsoka is done, I think we should probably do a dedicated episode on the new trilogy. I think we should talk about what worked and didn't work about 7, 8, and 9, even though they all made a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. For listeners out there, as you may have heard Pete and I discussing previously, we saw 7 together in what can only be described as one of the best days of my life. Yeah. I'll probably still be saying that the day that I get married. I'll still probably say to my wife, apart from the time that Pete and I saw episode 7, this is the best day of my life, right?
Nothing beats watching 3D Star Wars in Zimbabwe. Only 3 of us in the theater with paper cups filled with white wine from the bar next door. At like 10 in the morning, by the way, because we had lunch after that.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if it was the white wine or the emotions of that, but you and I were like in tears. I mean, we were legitimately crying.
It was hysterical because we went with a third friend and he looked at both of us and he didn't understand why we were so emotional.
He was like just back and forth to like the concession stand. And like Pete and I are just like wiping the tears from our eyes. Like, man, when we saw the Millennium Falcon, when we saw the chess set, like, you know, the gun and like everything, like I just remember like it was just such a wave of emotion. You're right. We have to watch 7, 8, 9. 7 for me is so good because the stakes were so high. And I thought it was a very good bridge to the next generation of the Star Wars universe. It didn't rewrite anything. It just borrowed a lot of elements in a really great way. 8 and 9 is where things, I think, really went off track. Ahsoka, this is pre-7, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So how many more episodes are there of Ahsoka now?
4 more.
I mean, it's too early to tell, but are you feeling like this is going to be a season 2 like Mandalorian, or you think this is one and done like even Andor is going to have a season 2, right?
Yeah. So Andor, the thing about Andor was they gave Andor 2 seasons from the get-go.
Yeah.
Ahsoka, at least at the moment, is a miniseries, which means it's just these 4 more episodes and then we're done.
We've only seen 1 season of Andor, right?
That's right. The second was filming. I think they're on hiatus now because of the strike, even though they were filming in Europe. I think out of solidarity or out of, you know, some technical complications, they've had to pause filming. Don't hold me to that, but I could have sworn I remember reading that somewhere. They are theoretically also delayed.
All right. So do we have anything else to say about Ahsoka?
No. At the moment, I really wanted this to be a must subscribe, but right now this is a mooch. And I think, again, I really think the final rating is going to come down to how the ending of the series goes.
Yeah.
I don't see this slipping to a skip territory, but at the same time, I'm having a hard time seeing this being elevated to a must subscribe as well.
I agree. I mean, let me tell you how I see this on the one hand and the other hand. On the one hand, there's a very good industry out there making stories like Ahsoka, which are relatively low stakes. You know, once it's high stakes, you and I know, we are finicky Star Wars fans, and we are not even the pinnacle of the most finicky Star Wars fans. Once you start to make something higher stakes, you potentially alienate someone because the stakes are so high. When you lower the stakes, like in this show, it's hard to really make any enemies. The flip side of that is that when the stakes are low, it really only appeals to the Petes and Ethans. It doesn't appeal to like our siblings and kind of like the common viewer, because they're like, what do I need this adjacent story for?
Yeah.
There's no stakes. There's no characters I know. There's nothing to like learn or see here, right? It's a winning and losing proposition at the same time by kind of lowering the stakes as they are in Ahsoka, right?
I think that they're going to have a tough time threading that needle.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, we know because of episode 7 that some way, somehow, the bad guys succeed at the end of Ahsoka. That is a foregone conclusion, and it's not a spoiler because episode 7 came out 7 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So it's understood that, hey, guess what? Thrawn is coming back. And even if they stop him, he's going to set off some plan in motion that creates the First Order. By the fact that Ahsoka and Sabine and any of the rebels weren't explicitly mentioned in episode 7, you can draw some conclusions from that. Maybe you don't want to, but you could theoretically. That gets interesting if we continue seeing their stories threaded through The Mandalorian and through other series that we know are going to continue existing between now and episode 7.
Look, if you're advising Dave Filoni and Lucasfilms, after Ahsoka, what other standalone episodes are there? Okay, we've got a new season of Andor. What other stories are there?
So there's a show called The Acolyte, which I don't know anything about. That was on the release schedule. I don't know if they're actually making it or if they made it or they didn't make it.
Okay.
There was one called The Skeleton Crew, which I believe is Jude Law.
Oh, really?
And he plays in the Star Wars universe. Again, I don't know anything about that either. And then, of course, we've got the next few seasons of The Mandalorian coming up.
So we're halfway through Ahsoka. Have to go. Probably the big payoff is coming.
I kind of want to see The Mandalorian make a cameo. Only because it'll be my way of getting back interested into seeing what happens with Sabine. And if not The Mandalorian, maybe we see Katie Sackhoff come in.
Oh, yeah.
We've retaken Mandalore.
Yeah.
I need you to come back and fulfill your place as, my right-hand person and help me rebuild Mandalore. Both would be interesting.
I mean, it seems right now that she's going to revert to being a Mandalorian more than a Jedi.
A Force user of some kind.
Yeah, because she's failed in the Force twice now. She failed with the coffee cup, and she failed in the fight with Shin.
She failed, but she was able to do something, right? Enough that Shin felt it.
Yeah. No. I think she shot her with her wrist rocket from her Mandalorian.
She did, but before that, she also tried to use the Force, and she's like, you're too weak, right? Maybe I misread that situation.
I thought Shin was, you've got nothing. Like, you can't do it. Yeah.
That's right. I took that to mean like she got the equivalent of like a small light face.
Oh, I guess you could interpret it a few ways. I felt like she saw her hand and she's like, oh no, she's going to do something. And then nothing happened. She's like, ha, you got nothing.
You're firing blanks. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's telling where she's going to revert. But I feel, although Balon is now like kind of a wild card, but I feel like she's kind of reverted more to, especially since she's dissed Ahsoka for a second time, she's kind of reverted to being a Mandalorian now.
I think what would be hilarious is that if through Balon she gets more Force powers. Like he's like, oh, well, you're not able to tap into the Force because you're not using XYZ portions of your emotions.
Yeah, and then she takes down Shin. Yeah. Last thing before we wrap it up. What do you make of the last scene with Ahsoka where we think she's kind of like in the water, but she's like sleeping on like some moonbeam, and then she sees a very old, de-aged Anakin.
Yeah.
What's happening there?
I think she's in her version of heaven, the Jedi version of heaven.
But she's not dead, is she?
She's not, but I think that, the Force is funny that way, right? Like we've seen Yoda
Like
come
a
back.
vision?
Yeah. I think
Oh.
it's like a Force vision.
Pete, anything else? Or is that it for our interim review of Ahsoka?
Yeah, that's it for our interim review. I mean, stay tuned to this space. This is one of the strongest cases of me being on a fence about a Star Wars property. Usually by now, I have a good idea of where I'm going to fall.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think this is going to fall into skip territory, but
No.
I'm also not confident it's going to fall into must subscribe.
I think we need to look at this a little bit differently. I think there is for, let's call it the common man, and I don't mean that like derogatory, my brothers and sisters. This is mooch. If you are a Star Wars fan, for you and I, this is must subscribe. There's no way you could go without seeing Ahsoka. No way. Agreed? You would never miss it. So if you're a Star Wars fan, this is must subscribe. If you're a Star Wars knower, right? This is a mooch.
Yeah.
If you've never even heard of Star Wars, this is a skip. Our friend who shall not be named, because he would get hate mail, has never seen a Star Wars film. This is a skip for him. He would never appreciate even the red lightsaber. It's a skip.
I agree with you on principle, but I think the point is that we have to be objective and we have to pretend like we're the common man.
Oh.
We have to pretend like we're walking into this as people who are aware of what Star Wars is. And of course, we do take our biases into account, and that's the whole point. But the point is that if the show is really a must subscribe, it should be a must subscribe such that we can tell he who must not be named, this show is so good that it'll make you want to watch Star Wars. And I can't say, and I can tell, exactly. That's the point, is that we cannot make that qualitative discussion point for him.
You're right. Okay, well, with that very complex rating system, viewers, guide yourself accordingly.
Stay tuned. Look, it's a mooch. If you like Star Wars, you're going to see a lot of Star Wars. There's some cool-ass ships. There's some cool-ass lightsabers. It's got all the elements of a Star Wars piece of media.
Pete, where can our loyal listeners agree to disagree, subscribe, ring the bell, and so forth?
More importantly, please take this opportunity to send us messages and kind of correct our Star Wars lore. It's been such a long time.
That's true.
I mean, unfortunately, Ethan hasn't watched any of it, but I have, and it's been so long, I can't even remember it. So help us brush up on our Star Wars lore. Reach out to us, tweet at us at F&S Podcast, DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast, email us aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com, or leave a comment below this video, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so that you're caught up on any time a new video drops.
All right, Pete, I thank you very much for your time and your talent. You are my MVP, most valuable Padawan.
I love it. Thank you very much, Master.
Thanks, everyone, for checking in. We'll see you next week on Films and Stuff Podcast.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.